Hey everyone, welcome back to Casey 3D Sparks. Sorry for missing last week. I kind of had some sort of sinus infection or something going on, which I don't know if you can tell, but I'm still a little stuffed up. So sorry if definitely sound a little different this week, but still recovering. But I wanted to make this video anyway. I thought I don't want to skip any more weeks. Anyway, so let's jump in. Obviously, we made our rat last time. So this week, we're going to go ahead and learn how to rig it with the bones that Blender has in here for us. Pose it, probably have to weight paint a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and apply the armature and make sure it's good for 3D printing. So to start off, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this rat to make sure everything's good. So I'll hide the first one and just have my duplicate selected, and I'm going to go ahead and apply my modifiers. Next, I want to go ahead and do Shift A, and we are going to go down to armature and single bone. Obviously, we don't want to do one of the other ones. There are animal ones, but I prefer just to go ahead and start with a single bone. That way you guys can get a feel of how to do all the rigging yourself. One thing you'll notice is it does pop up wherever your cursor is, just like a mesh, but you can't see through the mesh. Obviously, you could go into wireframe view by hitting Z, but I don't prefer this because sometimes it can get a little bit hard to see where you are. So I prefer to go over to your little armature tab over here and go ahead and hit X-ray, and it will show through whatever angle you're at. It'll show through the rat. Awesome. So go ahead and start with this bone here, and we're going to go ahead and rotate it. We're just hit R, and then I'm going to hit 90 and then hit the minus sign to make it negative and hit enter. Go ahead and pull this back. This is going to start the spine curvature. So just kind of, place it where you're most comfortable. I'm going to put it about there, and then I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode. So you'll notice now I can select either one of these 2 points or the whole bone itself. So if you right click on the whole bone, obviously when you move it, everything's gonna move. If you grab one of these points, if you grab it, it's only gonna move those points, which is what we want. So I want this one to stay here. So I'm gonna grab this pivot point, and I'm just gonna pull it up here. Now, just like when we're editing our mesh, we can hit E to extrude. So that's exactly what we're gonna do next to get the next vertebrae. So I'm gonna hit E to extrude and pull it up here. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna do every single count of vertebrae. Like, I don't even know how many rats have, but I'm sure it's a lot. I'm just gonna do maybe like 3 or 4, and then do a neck bone and a skull. So I think the 3 looks good. Actually, we want one to make sure that we have one for the shoulders. So we'll do that, and then this will be his neck, which I'm gonna stop right here before the ear. I think that'll be good because that's where we'll probably want his head to turn. And then for his skull, we'll hit E to extrude. And since we want the whole head to move, we're gonna go ahead and pull that all the way to the very tip of his nose. Now, if you guys went ahead and added more detail to this and added like an open mouth and stuff, obviously you could add one for the jaw as well, but you'd want to do it a little bit differently, kind of how we're gonna do the arms, legs, and tail in just a second. So go ahead, make your tweaks now, make sure that you're happy with the layout here. Now I'm making sure that I have one point here kind of like to attach the legs to, and then I'm making sure I have one for the shoulders too. Now obviously this isn't very precise at all. This is kind of just a bunch of guesswork, and then once we get into post mode, we can always, see how it works and redo the rig later. For animals, it's a bit of experimentation. At least for me, because I haven't seen anyone rig a rat before. Now for the arms and legs, obviously we can go ahead and we'll just go ahead and select this, and we'll hit E to extrude. But I don't want all of this rigged up. I really only want like 2 or 3 bones in the arm and foot. So what we're gonna do is select the whole bone, and then we're gonna hit Alt P, disconnect bone, And that will obviously disconnect it from there, but you'll notice this dotted line. So if I grabbed, like get out of edit mode and grabbed, actually stay in edit mode and grabbed all of these bones, like this one back here, all of these, it still stays, like it'll stay parented. So that way everything all together will move as one unit, which will make more sense once we get into pose mode, I guess. So I'm going to go into top view, grab this bone and rotate 90 degrees. I'm going to go into the side view and pull that down here. So I want his arm to be kind of about there, and then his ankle. And then I'm going to hit E to extrude, pull that down to about there. And I'm actually going to do one more small one for his toes. And then you want to make sure you go into front view to make sure that these are all lined up this way as well. So we're going to pull those to the center, just like that. Perfect. Now, for the other side, instead of redoing this and risk having it work a little bit differently, all we have to do is hit Shift D. I'm just going to hit escape like I normally do, and we can go ahead and pull it over. But obviously you'll notice it's still facing the same way the left arm would. So all you have to do is hit Control M. Whoops, just kidding. I hit Alt M. Control M, X, and it will mirror on that X axis. Once you do that, obviously go ahead and just pull it to where it needs to be. About there. Looks good. So we have both of our arms ready to go. So we'll do the same thing for the hind legs. So I'm going to grab this pivot point here, E to extrude. I'm going to go into top view and just pull that out. Grab the whole bone, Alt P, disconnect bone, pull that out. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. Pull that down. Pull it down to there. Two, and another one there. Go into front view because you see it's misaligned again. Pull that to the center there. And also you could do Alt 1 or Control 1 to view it that way as well. Perfect. So you can deselect everything. B for border select, grab all those bones. I'm going to go into front view, Shift D, hit escape, pull that over to approximately where I think it'll work. Control M, X, enter. Pull it back. Whoops. So now we just have the tail left. For the tail, you would think that I could go ahead and extrude this bone and parent it or disconnect it just like we would have here. But I'm going to go ahead and extrude it from here. Actually, I'm going to do that real quick. Go into side view. A to extrude. Alt P, disconnect bone, and grab that and bring it down here. Now I'm probably going to put it right about, put that pivot point right at the base, and I'm going to go ahead and draw this all the way to the very tip of the tail and maybe exceed it just a tiny bit. About like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the whole bone, and instead of extruding like we did along the spine, to make sure that the bones stay the same size, we're going to hit W and subdivide. And we're just going to do that a couple times. If you already know the precise amount of cuts that you want, you could change it to here instead of only one cut, but I'm just going to hit it a few times until I'm happy with the result. Now I'm happy with this, but you'll notice that it got a little bit shorter. So this bone's going to be a tad bit longer than the rest, but I'm okay with that. If you'd rather it the opposite way, obviously just go ahead and grab all of them, slide that down. You can move this pivot point back, which actually I might do that instead. Make that a little bit better. Awesome. Okay, before we go any further, we want to go ahead and rename our bones. I'm going to go ahead, open this menu back up by hitting the N key. And you'll notice that we have our item name, so armature, which is, you know, the overall name for the whole piece. When you click on each bone, it has actual bone names as well. Now, that's really important for when you're rigging to actually do an animation. We're only doing it for getting it to pose so we can print it out, but it's still important. So it's a good habit to have, even if you aren't, you know, doing anything crazy strict like animation. So go ahead and, you know, make a habit of renaming your bones. So that way when you go to pose, it's not bone, bone 1, bone 2, etc. The way I usually do it is, so I'll start at the base here. I'll go ahead and do spine, space 1. Obviously, if you want to be more technical, you could do vertebrae 1, but it's a little bit faster and easier, and I know what I mean by spine 2. Though not, you know, probably the correct way to do it, but, you know, not here to follow all the rules, right? Oh wait, that's 4. This one I'm going to call neck. And this one, we're going to do head. You could call it skull if you prefer. That's totally up to you. For this one, we're going to do arm. And then this is his left, so I'm just going to do capital L for left. This one, we're going to do ankle, left. And foot, left. And then basically the same over here. So we're going to do, what am I doing? Arm, right. Ankle, right. And foot, right. So you guys kind of get the gist of this. Probably speed through the rest of these namings. If you have any questions, obviously just post them in the comments below. So now that we have our rig all set up, you know, make any final adjustments now before we apply it. Obviously, you want to go ahead and get out of edit mode to actually apply. Select your rat and then select your armature. Do Control P, and then there's a few different ways to do this. Since we're going pretty organic here, we're gonna do automatic weights. Blender's typically really good at figuring out how you want your weight painted when you do automatic. If your creature or thing moves pretty organically, if you're doing something mechanical, you definitely don't want to do automatic weights because you'll be fixing a lot more than you'd want. You'll probably just want to do armature to form. But that's something that you can look up on your own for how to do that stuff. We're going to go ahead and just click automatic weights. Give it a second. It's going to think about it. But once it's done, what you can do to test it out is we're going to go ahead and go into pose mode. When you're in pose mode, you'll notice that the bones, when they're selected, will be blue. So go ahead, select a bone or a pivot point, whatever, and start rotating it. So obviously this is the actual back itself. Everything's going to be moving if I rotate that whole thing. If I grab this one, just this front half. Okay, it's a little funky there, but not too bad. Leg, arm. Oh, go into top view, turn his head. That, and start posing him, see how it works. And of course you can just Control Z to undo any moves that you've done if you're interested. Now his leg moves a lot more than I'd like. You'll notice that typically when your arm moves, you don't have like all of your chest and like stomach moving with it. So this is where we'll want to go into our weight paint and fix that stuff. So if you have your armature selected, you'll notice you can't go into weight paint. You actually have to click on the rat itself, and then you can go into weight paint. So here you can actually see the blue, the dark blue means that it's not affected by the bone. And then of course there's a gradient as to how much it's affected by the bone. So red, I believe, is the strongest it can be. So the whole thing is definitely going to move. And then, you know, so on and so forth. The brushes up here are how you're going to subtract. So if you've ever done sculpting and just try to do control to try and take away, it's not going to work. You actually have to go to subtract in order to take away. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this extra stuff here because I don't want that to move with his arm. So obviously you can change the brush size and stuff like that. You know, strength. I'm going to crank up the strength some. And then okay, that's good. Make sure, don't forget to rotate and look at it. So we definitely don't want all this belly area to move with his arm. Now some of it's okay. Obviously, you know, rats have like all of their skin kind of is loose and stuff, so kind of be a little bit more organic, I guess, if that's the right word. So I'll probably leave some of that in there. That's probably good. But then you're going to want to go ahead and go to your next bone. So over here you can see that's why it was so important to name our bones, because if you were just going and looking for bone 26, I mean, sure, it'd be in order, but you don't know what bone 26 is. I mean, if you can memorize that quickly, good for you, but I'm not cool like that. So I have to name them. So I'm going to go ahead and look for arm R, select that, and then we can go ahead and get our weights over here fixed as well. And, you know, just try to imitate it as best you can from what you remember from the other side. Pretty simple here. We're just subtracting. Nothing fancy. Let's bring that all the way down. Get rid of this. Awesome. Okay. So obviously I'm not going to go too crazy with this. You guys probably get the picture by now. And of course, if you wanted to add on, you can pick one of these other ones. I think it's typically on this one. Yeah. So mix, you know, you can go ahead and make that super dark if you want, you know, for some reason his butt to move with his arm. I don't know, your preference. So go ahead, get all of your weight paints. I'm just going to go ahead and move forward instead of getting mine totally perfect, so that way you guys don't have to sit here for 5 hours. And I'm going to go ahead and just go back into object mode, select my armature, and it's automatically in pose mode already. Now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pick a generic pose so that way you guys can see how to export it and everything to be printed. So let's go ahead. I kind of want him, let's make him go up a little bit. Now I'm trying to make it not too distorted. I have no idea what I'm making him do with his feet. This is not going how I planned, but you guys get the idea. So before I make this pose even more ridiculous, I'm gonna go ahead and just show you how to apply it, export it, and it should be good to go. That's another reason why I was just making this a duplicate, so I could edit my rat more, because I wanted to add more detail, possibly add like an open mouth and stuff like that, add teeth, make him look a little bit more scary, appropriate for D&D. So with our rat selected, not the armature, we'll go ahead and go to our modifiers tab and hit apply. Now obviously if you're rigging this for animation or something like that, you're not going to do this. You're going to leave it as a modifier. But since we're doing it for 3D printing, we'll go ahead and apply it. File, export, STL. However, since I did it in inches, I'll still have to convert it to millimeters first. Let me go ahead and do that really quick, and then I'll show you what it'll look like in my 3D printing software. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and exported my rat. He's popped into my 3D printing software. Now, obviously he's a little rushed. I think what I want to do in order to fix him is add a lot more rings to his tail, so that way it's not as clunky here, and obviously pose him differently so his arms aren't crazy. Obviously it might not print with all that detail in there, so it might be okay. I could probably sand it maybe a little bit or something like that, but I think he doesn't look half bad for my first try. Yeah, mainly his stomach right there is pretty messed up, so I'll have to fix some things off. This is more of an overview, so that way you guys can start making your own creatures, and maybe you'll find some cooler tips and tricks that you'll share with me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or requests for the future. I really appreciate any feedback. Yeah, other than that, just please like and subscribe. Let me know, and I will see you guys next week.